All right, everybody, for sake of time, we'll just go ahead and get started. I'm sure there'll be some more people hopping in, so you might hear me repeat myself. So thanks for joining us. My name's Troy. I work here at SimpliPhi Power, technical training. Today, we're going to be kind of going through kind of SimpliPhi 101. We're also co-hosted with Sentinel Solar, one of our distribution partners, and Dan from Sentinel will be doing some talking at the end regarding one of their products as well. So with that, let's just go ahead and kick it right off. Okay, so just a little bit about SimpliPhi as a company. I always like to just kind of give a little brief overview of where we started, where we came from. We actually started as OES Energy. This was in 2010. From there, we kind of built up various residential projects as well as a lot of military contracts, providing batteries to the Department of Defense. This allowed us to really build out our product line and eventually relaunch as SimpliPhi Power. Once we launched as SimpliPhi Power, we really kind of focused on how to ramp up manufacturing, lower cost, and build the most efficient products we can. Okay, as far as our energy storage solutions, they are safe, proven, and simple technology. Safe being non-toxic, non-hazardous, cobalt-free batteries, cobalt-free lithium specifically, which means we have no risk of thermal runaway, and we don't require a lot of external cooling systems, or really any external cooling systems. Battery is UL certified, 1642, 1973, 9540A on a system level. UN DOT certified as well, and SGIP approved. Don't worry about that one. That one's if you're in California, then it is important, but that's really just more of an incentive program. Proven technology. We are over a decade of experience and growth at this point, deployed in over 40 countries, over 100 megawatt hours installed worldwide. This has been tested and validated by the U.S. Army and Marine Corps as our batteries in the field. We even are manufactured in the United States, pretty rare actually these days. Most batteries are just white labeled. And simple, integrating with really any energy source or generation source, whether it's grid, solar, wind, generator. We try to make sure that we can integrate with all of these as easily as possible and still take advantage of functions like time of use, peak load shaving, demand charges through our various products. All right, as far as battery chemistry goes, I think really looking at it on a lithium standpoint is the most important. So we look at it as comparing lithium to lithium. So, you hear the term lithium ion, large encompass of different lithium batteries, and what makes us different. That'd be lithium iron phosphate is the chemistry we are using. And as you can see here on the right of this chart, these are all cobalt-based batteries, meaning they have cobalt in them. These types of lithiums are what you hear on the news, going into thermal runaway, catching fire. Lithium iron phosphate does not have that problem. It is non-toxic. Technically landfill safe, though I would always recycle the battery if possible. Does not require ventilation or cooling systems or even safety monitoring equipment to ensure that the temperature remains the same. So again, we are a lithium iron phosphate manufacturer as far as our batteries go, what the chemistry we're using inside of them. And just in case you were wondering, we use a cylindrical form factor in our cells to build out these batteries. Lithium iron phosphate, LFP, and a cylindrical form factor are kind of the basis of all of our products, whether it's batteries or all-in-one systems, ESS. Okay, a little bit about the batteries. So specification-wise, this has actually changed a little bit since probably, I think a few months ago here. So we used to warranty based on depth of discharge, meaning 80% depth of discharge is going to give you a longer cycle life. Now it is just 10 years flat, no matter what, and unlimited cycles, whether you're using 80 or 100%. I will say that there's definitely expected life versus 20% are running down to 80% depth of discharge versus 10%, or excuse me, 90% depth of discharge. And we'll go over that a little bit later regarding, how to basically use these to your advantage. But beyond that warranty period, 80% depth of discharge is still going to give you the longest lifespan. Temperature-wise, and I will mention temperature again here coming up regarding our new AmpliPHI battery in the next few slides here. But currently, temperature-wise, it's really more important to look at charging temperature versus operating temperature, but operating meaning discharge or standby, which is -4 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, not as important. Most people need to charge their batteries in the same temperature that they are operating in. So that would be 32 degrees Fahrenheit to 120 degrees Fahrenheit, or 0 degrees Celsius to 49 degrees Celsius. That is the charging temperature that we want to stick within. And again, I'll mention something else coming up regarding the temperature a little bit. Okay, each of our batteries comes with an integrated battery management system. This is what I'm going to talk about right here is just our standard Phi battery. But our newest battery does have a little bit different of a BMS. This is an analog BMS. It's designed to be as basic as possible, but still perform the functions needed, like cell balancing and some kind of base level overcurrent, short circuit, and charge and discharge protection. Those protections are really more of a, hopefully, these are not something I would rely upon. You still need to program the system properly, and you don't want to rely on these various protections to be to kind of take the place of a correctly sized and programmed system. Okay, a little bit about key features regarding C rate. This is the power rate of the battery. For those that maybe don't know, a C rate is just a measure of the rate at which a battery is discharged relative to its maximum capacity. So this is how we give our battery their rating. That amp hour, that kilowatt hour rating comes at a C/2. That being said, it is also the max continuous charge and discharge of the battery. So what does this mean exactly? It means that if we have a 3.8 kilowatt hour battery, we can charge or discharge at 1.9 kilowatts per hour for 2 hours. As far as discharge goes, and I'll talk about this a lot in one of my more advanced webinars, you're probably not going to be using C/2 as far as continuous discharge if it's a residential system. I mean, realistically, it's just most people want more than 2 hours of backup if that's off grid, if that's in person, if that's, I was reading a question at the same time here. If that's off grid, if that's battery backup, most people are going to want more than 2 hours of backup. Now, where it does come really in handy is charging, especially when it comes to solar. Having a larger array that can charge the battery in 2 hours versus definitely lead acid batteries is a great advantage. Our batteries are scalable and expandable. They are parallel connections only, meaning if you've got two 48-volt batteries, you're always going to make, put them paralleled. And same thing with 24 volt. You don't want to put two 24 volts in series to make a 48 volt. That will damage the BMS, the battery management system. As far as scalability and our 48 volt batteries, our standard Phi batteries, there is technically no limit to how many of these you can put in parallel. So this on the left here is a system, 88 batteries in parallel, 300 kilowatt hours total. Expansion is a huge advantage when it comes to SimpliPhi batteries. The ability to basically add new batteries to an old system later on. So this can be a really big advantage if your customer's energy or power demands grow or whatever may come that you need to add more batteries. And it's true with pretty much all lithium batteries. This is maintenance-free, self-contained, and stable. I will say, versus like a lead acid battery is no maintenance as far as I would be concerned. No off-gassing, venting, specific gravity checks, anything like that. They also have a very low self-discharge rate. And the low discharge rate, it can be really helpful when you are storing the batteries or if they are in standby waiting to be used when the grid goes down. So on that same note regarding maintenance, this is a great example I like to use of a lead acid battery bank that has been replaced by Phi batteries. You can see here it's about triple the size, the original lead acid bank, yet the battery bank on the right actually has more energy and more power available in that smaller footprint. No corrosion, not a bunch of caps and battery box and vent fan and all of that is cut out. Okay, a little bit regarding our specific products, and I'll talk about some new ones as well as we jump through this. The standard battery, currently we are just offering the 3.8 kilowatt hour battery right now. So that is the standard Phi battery, comes in 24 and 48 volts, 151 amp hours at 24 volts, 75 amp hours at 48 volts. Simple parallel connections only again. No series on these batteries. Again, they're designed to be modular and scalable, so they come in a very small package so that you can move them around, easily place them where you need to, and scale up so that you're not wasting a customer's money with too much energy or too much power that they do not require. Try to really fit into the exact amount that they need. We have some smaller products as well. Our 1.4 kilowatt hour battery. This comes in 24 volts, but it also comes in 12 volts at 115 amp hours. It's also scalable. It's very small and lightweight, about 33 pounds. It's really great for mobile applications. It doesn't actually even have terminals. It has you can have either bare wire here or the Anderson connector, which it can be really helpful in mobile applications. Still has an integrated battery management system, and still works with most standard charge controllers and inverters we'd pair our other batteries or products with. Some of our kind of all-in-one products to kick them off here, the Big Jenny, the Big Jenny and the Little Jenny, and then the emergency kit that comes with it if you want to buy it with the Big Jenny, that foldable solar panel. These are all-in-one products, still utilizing lithium iron phosphate, really designed for portable power, emergency power, think something like something you see to go camping with, but also the big majority of what we see with these are large contracts where maybe a lot of them we're sending out to emergency power or need of portable power. Okay, moving on to more ESS solutions we offer. The Express unit, this is kind of an all-in-one unit that's a little bit larger, designed for a larger backup, but without having to wire into your critical loads panel or into your home at all. You can basically have this unit charged up from the grid through the AC inlet or through a solar panel, or solar panels, I should say, through the DC quick connect inlet that goes through the charge controller. It has 4 outlets here on the side, as well as 2 USB ports. So you can actually pull power directly from the unit and charge your loads without having to wire it into a panel. So if you want to charge it up, put it in the garage and roll it into the house and actually plug in, refrigerators and things like that. When the power goes out, you don't need to wire it in directly to the home. The Access, on the other hand, is meant to be wired direct to the home, an all-in-one ESS solution, NEMA 3R rated. This could be DC or AC coupled, and really designed to be, I'll actually go way more in depth in the Access, so I'll leave it right there, but we're going to go through the different variations of Access later on in the presentation. We also offer high voltage solutions. I mentioned, only in parallel. These are the batteries that we designed to be put into series to build up to 200, 800 VDC nominal, and then stacked from there to build out the energy. They're really for microgrids or large scale backups that might require a large 480 volt 3-phase. The BMS is external. It's actually a stack controller and comes standard with CAN bus, Modbus, and Ethernet. And the BMS actually has the ability to have its own monitoring platform just specific for the battery as well. Our newest battery is the AmpliPHI battery. So same size as our standard. It comes in those 3.8 kilowatt hour building blocks. It is UL 1973, and if you are in Canada, it is also has that listing as well as our standard battery does, just FYI. So voltage, amp hour is still the same. The big difference is max discharge at 10 minutes. So our standard Phi batteries can do 60 amps for 10 minutes DC per battery. This one can do 100 amps DC at 10 minutes per battery. It is currently limited to 30 batteries in parallel, and that has to do with comms cables, which I'll explain here in a second. The case is now metal, but it's only slightly heavier. It's about 86 pounds, which is only 10 pounds heavier than our standard batteries, but it still fits in all of our existing cabinets. Anything that the standard battery fit in, these will fit as well. What's the big difference here? It actually has closed loop communications with the inverter currently. So this is an analog and digital BMS with closed loop communications. Currently, it's just advanced integration with the solar converters. We're adding a lot on right now. We're working through some other ones. I know SMA is, I think, lined up to possibly be the next one with the Sunny Island, as it's really a requirement to integrate with the Sunny Islands. So this will be a great solution for that. And we're looking at, obviously, kind of our main inverters like Schneider and Outback and whatnot to integrate with as well. So right now, though, advanced integration with just the solar converter. It auto-populates the set points for you. It has protection that's built in from the battery. You can actually have, I don't know if anyone's familiar with our sizing requirements, which I'm going to talk about later on. We make sure that we want to have double the battery or the energy storage versus the power that the inverter can output on a continuous basis. This allows us to have, you can have one battery on a 12 kilowatt solar, and it would recognize that it was one battery and limit the discharge. It also gives high level accurate readings as far as state of charge, voltage, and charge and discharge of coming in and out of the battery. And as I mentioned, it is flexible in the sizing. So this is our newest battery to hit the market. And again, we'll be adding a lot more inverters here that it communicates with coming up. But no external cards or anything required. Everything is internal to the BMS and does it all from the battery management system itself, as well as it has the ability to update firmware as we come out with new features to the battery. All right, levelized cost of energy. I just want to briefly go through this. This is something that I like to talk about. Even if you're an installer, you're probably still selling the batteries. So it's important to kind of understand what's a good comparison versus just upfront cost. Levelized cost of energy storage really gives us the cost of the battery over the entire lifetime of the battery per kilowatt hour you're going to get out of that battery. I won't bore you with the equation. This is it. This is the one we use. Price over capacity times the cycles warranted times the efficiency and the depth of discharge used. Why I won't bore you too much. Let's see if this works without freezing up the computer here. Awesome. Beautiful. We do have a levelized cost of energy tool if you're interested in comparing batteries to batteries on a lifetime basically think ROI, return on investment for energy storage. Use this tool. We actually have a webinar next week that's all about our tools on our website. But this is a great tool to compare to either lead acid or to other lithiums as far as cost, and more than just the upfront cost. All right, we're gonna hop in a little bit through battery sizing and some basics on installation. And then we'll wrap up kind of with the access solution, and we'll hand it off to Sentinel to go through one of their products that they'll be talking about. Okay, depth of discharge. I mentioned earlier, well, we do now warranty, 10 years. It's basically, we are warranting 10 years unlimited depth or unlimited cycles at basically any depth of discharge. However, I would say it's really going to be, if we want to maximize the battery's lifespan, I mean, these are what we kind of used to warranty as far as cycles, but it was if the cycles were hit or the years were hit first. So most of the time, the 10 years was hit first. But I can just tell you that using the battery 80% depth of discharge is going to give you a lot longer lifespan in the end. That being said, you can definitely base it off your mode of operation. What are you using the battery for? It can be really easy to kind of pick your depth of discharge based on that. So the idea being, hey, I've got a battery backup system. The customer only charges and discharges, let's say once. I mean, maybe the grid goes out, let's say once a month, maybe twice a month. They can probably use that battery at a 90 or 100%, and it's not going to necessarily affect that battery so much. Now, if you're off grid, definitely you want to maximize that cycle life. So I would recommend using 80% depth of discharge. So you can definitely kind of base it off how often the battery's in use. I think the big ones are battery backup and off grid, looking at how those two kind of contrast each other. Okay, so I mentioned this with sizing, and again, I just want to reiterate, if you're using your AmpliPHI battery with an inverter it pairs with, this does not apply to it. It can actually limit the discharge direct from the battery management system. If you are using one of our standard Phi batteries, though, it's super important to remember that the battery should be sized to twice the inverter's output capability. This is a minimum requirement. You can put as many batteries as you want on an inverter. But for instance, if you've got this Radiant 8000 here, that inverter can technically do 8,000 watts continuous. Just make sure that you have minimal 16 kilowatt hours of battery. If you need any help on that, again, check out my webinar next week when we go through tools. We've got a lot of tools on the website. We're actually going to do a little bit of a tour of the website as well. Should be really fun. We also have a system-based Phi calculator. It's this one right here. This one can be super helpful if you have any questions regarding sizing that I just mentioned, or it goes a little bit more in depth into AC/DC coupling and basic, some more advanced stuff like that. We also have a battery bank sizer that is just based on kilowatt hours and consumption. We also have a lead acid battery bank replacement calculator. So we've got a ton of tools on the website for sizing. If you're interested, sign up. It's actually on the calendar right now on our website. If you want to sign up for that, that's going to be a really cool webinar. We're going to talk a lot about these tools. Okay, some really high-level basic installation stuff. I mean, we're just going to really kind of just breach the surface. First and foremost, shipping and receiving, getting the battery. This is really what it's going to look like, individually boxed here. It's important to check the battery for damage, check the box for damage. I typically don't sign for things that come even with slight damage, even if the battery doesn't show damage. I would probably just, file a claim with the trucking company if you receive some batteries that are questionable if they receive damage or not. It's also a good idea to check the breaker, make sure that they're holding. If they're not engaging, it might be that something was dropped along the way. So it's a good indicator. All right, ignore the header there. It looks to be the same as the last header, but this is clearance and requirements for clearance and mounting, really. So as far as clearance goes, and what I mean by clearance is how much space needs to be in between the batteries. We technically do not have any clearance requirements for our standard batteries. Obviously, if you're using the wall brackets that we provide from SimpliPhi, these are, sorry, when I say provide, they're optional. But if you decide to purchase these ones, you can't obviously put them directly up against each other, but if they're sitting on a rack or something, they can sit flush up against each other. As far as, excuse me, as far as mounting requirements, we really don't have a ton. You can use these brackets, you can use your own brackets, as long as they are able to hold, it's not a problem. Rack and battery boxes, huge advantage to using I would say a box is going to be the best way to go. So if you've got some sort of rack, which I think Sentinel is going to talk about one that they offer, that's a great way to go as well to kind of clean up the system. Though you can always mount them as well. As far as orientation goes, they can sit on their side. They can sit on their sides. The only thing we don't want is if they're mounted with the leads facing upside down. That's the only one I really would say steer clear of. Okay, a little bit about wiring. Parallel wiring, done a little different here. So, from what you might expect, and I'll explain this in a bunch of different ways here, but if you are using just basic wires, you might expect to jump from battery to battery and up to the connection point or the common bus. If we're going to use wires, we want to use same length, same size cables running to a common, or this could be your inverter connection, whatever it may be. We want everything to be even and run individually to connect here. Same thing with the negatives. This helps distribute power evenly and keep that high efficiency of the battery. Now, the other option I would say is the best option, which we use in our access solution, is terminal bus bars. So a bus bar running across the entire battery bank, terminal to terminal. And really at that point, it doesn't matter where your wire is coming out of. It's all very common at that point. And you're going to see a really even distribution of power. If you're building out larger systems and require some sort of combiner box, Midnight makes one, Outback makes one. You can probably source your own as well, or even, it's just basic DC busing. So as long as it has the current and the voltage rating, it's okay with us. Definitely want it a little insulated too, of course, though I've seen it where it's not. Oh, sorry there. Oh, right. A little bit about torque specifications, and sorry if there's not the conversion here. 160 inch-pounds, 13.3 foot-pounds. It's in the manual. It's in both metric and imperial. The important thing is to make sure you're using a proper torque wrench. Don't use an impact drill. Don't just use any sort of socket. Use a torque wrench. You might even feel, just FYI, you might feel that top of that battery spin just a little bit, that rubber housing. That's normal. It's not a big deal. If it starts to move, it's okay. It's just getting to its torque specification. And I can't stress this enough, recalibrate your torque wrench in between job sites. I see it way too often. You'd be surprised of somebody that snaps a battery lead because they did not recalibrate their torque wrench, and they probably hit double that specification. And they can handle a lot on those battery leads, but just make sure to calibrate it so that you get the right specification. As far as system commissioning and programming, definitely, if you're interested in kind of learning more, we've got more in-depth trainings regarding programming and set points and understanding, SOC, state of charge, and various things like that. But if you're looking to kind of get the basics, you're looking at absorb, bulk, float, low battery cutout, high battery cutout, and max charge. Those are kind of the basic set points that are really important. If you go to our installation manual, you'll find a lot of those, but more than not, I would say, go to our integration guides page. So you go to integration guides. This is actually a little bit out of our integration guide here on the right. This is the Schneider integration guide. You can see the charge controller and the inverter. And we basically just list the settings and tell you exactly what we would recommend for that set point. We try to keep them up to date as possible, so always kind of keep an eye on them. But you can always, pull those for super easy programming, or just call us if you've got any questions. We're always around. We're always happy to pick up as well. Advanced functions that sometimes you might find, you might not find in these kind of guides is like cell voltage is a bit open to interpretation depending on how you want it to function. Still, you might see a suggestion in there. And things like automatic generator start triggers. Again, that's probably nothing you might find in our guides. Those are more based on preference and what the customer is looking for. All right, a little bit about the access before I kind of wrap up here. So Access Solution is our all-in-one solution, pre-wired, pre-programmed, comes in AC, comes in DC coupled, and it even supports things like generators. You know, it can be off-grid or it can be grid-tied. Comes in two varieties right now. That would be the Access with Schneider, which is the XW Pro now. It's AC coupled standard, meaning it only comes with the inverter and the batteries standard. You can add that charge controller to go DC coupled though. That is an option. We also offer the Solar. This is an all-in-one solution with Solar. Comes with a 12 kW Solar. Charge controller is built in, so it can be AC or DC coupled, no matter how you order it. This thing can do some pretty cool functions and actually can be purchased now with our AmpliPHI batteries in it. So again, you know, automatic transfer switch is built into these units, meaning when the grid goes down, it will island itself. You don't need any sort of ATS externally, as long as you're using a critical loads panel. And it can be, again, AC or DC coupled, and even support things like generators. As far as post-installation goes on the Access solution, we just use the platforms given to us by these inverter and charger manufacturers. So Schneider, we're just using, was the ComBox, now I believe it is the Gateway, which all you need is really just a wireless router. You can get real-time monitoring, historical monitoring. You cannot program wirelessly, at least not very easily, but you can definitely check out all this cool data. The customer can have this on their cell phone or tablet or whatever it may be. Solar, basically the same thing. I mean, most of these platforms are very identical. You know, real-time monitoring, real-time monitoring here, historical monitoring down here, but you can also do a little bit of wireless programming through this one, which is a definite benefit when you have faraway sites. Okay, just to wrap up my last slide here, I'm going to pop out of here in a second. So this is the installer qualification program. I just want to mention, if you are installing our batteries already, this is not a requirement to install our batteries. It's more of an added benefit for those that are already using our batteries, selling our batteries, installing our batteries. This program is designed to basically, you know, you get a nice spot on that where to buy map that you just saw, where you're a nice pin. You get some cool swag, and you know, you'll be part of some trainings that are coming up where we're going to highlight these installers. You know, here under, if you go to support and IQ installer qualifications, you'll actually find right here is the application to apply. Requirements are you pass the SimpliPhi test that I administer. It's pretty straightforward. It's just multiple choice and true and false. You have to have 2 installs with our batteries minimal, and just a few other basic information pieces. But again, if you do become IQ certified, you will end up on our page here. And, you know, if a customer is, let's say, you know, popping in to look for, look at that, there's nobody up here in Canada. There's really only a few here. Hawaii's nice and populated with them right now. But, you know, if you're a customer and you're looking at this where to buy page, obviously, you know, this person's going through a distribution partner. But the cool thing is the customer might see this, call that installer direct, driving their business. And we're definitely going to be doing a lot more highlights for these IQ installers. And this program is really going to be kicking off even more this year. And lots of cool swag too. So you never can beat swag. All right, with that, I'm going to hand it off to Dan at Sentinel Solar. Dan, I will hand it off to you right now. 1 second.
Oh, okay, sounds good. Thanks, Troy.
All right, controls are all yours.
Controls are all mine. Okay, let's see. So first off, I just want to say thanks to Troy and the team at SimpliPhi. I hope everyone can hear me okay as well. I'm just using a laptop. Okay, perfect. So yes, thanks to SimpliPhi for co-hosting this webinar with us. And also thanks to everyone for joining in. I hope you've been enjoying it so far. So my name is Dan and I'm with Sentinel. And I'm going to be using this half of the webinar to introduce and provide an overview of a product we've been working on here at Sentinel for the last 6 months, which is, of course, the SI Sendbox. Okay. So a simple solution for energy storage systems. So what I'm going to do is basically just quickly go over the design scope of the product, talk about the motivation behind it, and then we're just going to jump into the key features, okay? And that's what we think make it a great product. So with that, here we go. So here it is, meet the SI Sendbox. So this is the all-new SI Sendbox. It's an indoor enclosure designed for use with SimpliPhi power, 3.8 kilowatt LFP batteries, and that is both the 24 volt and 48 volt configurations. Each unit holds up to 3 batteries and can stack vertically or horizontally. And also there's an optional breaker kit that can be added in for isolating the batteries right at the enclosure, okay? So, why did we make this product? Okay, so a couple of things. We decided that there needed to be a product on the market that provides protection for the batteries, something that looks good, that's organized, and most importantly, really simple to install. Okay, we wanted to offer end users, a product that was compact, it fits nicely into any space, and it has that aesthetic look. So I would say the biggest motivator is, essentially to clear the clutter of a typical battery installation, okay, and make it much easier for installers on site. I've seen systems built, into a utility room, for example, and they've got things like, handmade shelves, whether made out of wood, or you've got fabricated metal frames, or even something like unistruts kind of, bolted all along the wall, just to hold all of these components, right? And, there's wires snaking around things, and basically things that are exposed that could be tucked in nicely to this enclosure and look clean and tidy, okay? Then we considered the amount of preparation and planning that would go into designing such a battery system, and that takes up a large part of installers' time, and it adds to their overhead costs, of course. So essentially, they're charging customers to lay out a battery system. Then they've got to source the materials for building things like substructures, reinforcing walls, things of that nature. But now, for installers, they can have something built with very little planning, in a fraction of the time, and ultimately it looks tidy and clean. Okay, so we're gonna jump into the features. Now we're gonna hit the space bar here to see if I can advance.
Go ahead and click first, and that should give you control. There you go.
Okay, oh, perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead now. We'll go to the next slide. If I can get it here. Where are they?
Go ahead and try clicking. There you go. Now try advancing. Should work. There you go.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so a quick overview. Okay, this is what I'm going to be talking about for the remainder of this presentation. Okay, so I'm just going to skim through these, but basically, big one is shipping flat pack. Okay, obviously, significantly lower cost for shipping. Ease of assembly. Okay, we're talking a handful of components that just bolt together with standard Phillips drive hardware. Integrated bus bars. That's a really neat one. We're basically getting rid of the headache of cables. Not just fabricating them, but also installing them. Okay, and then of course modular design. So talking about options here, and the ease of sizing. A SimpliPhi battery system using our cabinets, and that they're modular. Okay, and then of course optional breakers. So I don't really have to go in depth too much on that, but basically they are sold separately, and as I mentioned, we offer that as a means for end users to, sometimes they may want that control of isolation right at the cabinet. Typically these breakers are already included in perhaps the power electronics, or where everything is terminating outside of this box. But it still is an option if customers do want to incorporate that. Okay, so I'll just jump right in now to the meat and potatoes here. Okay, so flat pack design. So I mean that's as simple as it gets, right? So you've got your two boxes. The smaller box is going to hold the top and the base portion of the cabinet, and then you've got the bigger box, which is going to hold the body components of the cabinet, as you can see in the illustration there. Now I'm going to just kind of try not to be too confusing about this, but basically those two boxes there are dual purpose, okay? So on the box, there's going to be those little check boxes that kind of tell us what's inside. And there's a reason for there being two boxes as opposed to one. And that comes down to when we do the stacking, in particular, the vertical stack, we're essentially changing out one component so that we could achieve that vertical stack, okay? So keep this in mind for later, and I'll kind of just double back on it just to illustrate that a bit better. But what you see is what you get, right? So significantly lower cost for shipping than something like a prefabricated frame or rack, and of course easier access, to residential and small commercial deployments. You're heading down somebody's stairs, or you're, wherever you're going, you're carrying these two packages in your arms, and it's as simple as that. Okay. So next, ease of assembly. Okay, so you can see in the illustration here the exploded view of the enclosure. So super simple, okay? I'll just kind of break down the parts here. So the base, you have a base up the bottom there, you've got two shelves, you've got a top with a cover plate, you've got two side panels, and you've got a front and a back cover, okay? So with the base, it has leveling feet, okay? So you would install these leveling feet, determine where you're going to put this unit, and then you just simply use a wrench to adjust the feet to make it level. For the side panels, so venting, of course, top and bottom, and then also at the top side there, you have your 2-inch trade size knockouts, okay? And that's, of course, for exiting the enclosure with your home run cables or your inverter cables. Also, to note about the knockouts, when you're stacking systems side by side, you're basically using those knockouts as your conduit between cabinets as well for being able to parallel the stacks, okay? The top, so the top comes with a cover plate. It's kind of there, if you can see it there, just hanging in front. So that's always going to be included in, the standard kit. In the case where you do choose to include the breaker kit, all you do is pop that cover plate out, install the breaker bracket and the breaker, and that's it. Now, when you're not using the breaker, one thing you can do, and it's an option, and it's simply for appearance, but basically that top can spin around 180 degrees. So you're essentially hiding that cutout on the back side of the unit. So therefore, your front of the unit is just a smooth kind of finished appearance. Okay. The front and back cover panels. Okay, so they're corrugated. This is sheet metal. It's just a flat piece, but it's corrugated to give it some strength, and also just to give it a bit of a unique look. Okay. So in regards to bolting this whole thing together, so it is powder coated steel. Okay, so what we've done is just provide fasteners with serrated washers that will bite through the paint, and this is what's going to create the electric bond between all of the parts of the enclosure. And for the front and the back, that will just be a thread forming screw, and that will provide the bond there as well. And of course, we do include a aluminum grounding lug that you can install inside the cabinet as well, typically on the side panel. That would be outlined in the installation manual. And then, of course, yes, as you see there, the installation manual. So very detailed, step by step, start to finish, how you get this thing put together. And I will say, you'll build one and you won't need the installation manual anymore, because it is that simple. And each one you build will definitely be put together faster than the last one. Okay. So that is the ease of assembly. And now I'm going to jump into the fun part of the Integrated bus bars. Okay, so safe and secure, clean and organized. Okay, each system is going to come with a set of these bus bars for the parallel connections between the batteries, and of course the breaker as well. And I'll kind of guide through that, as you can see. So first we'll start with the single stack on the right there. As you can see, so a pair of bus bars for the positive and the negative connections, and those are included in the standard kit. And essentially for your home run cables or your inverter cables, you'd basically just come in through those knockouts on the side, one side or the other, and it's essentially they're in line with those top posts. So you would land your inverter cables directly onto that SimpliPhi post there, just on top of the bus bar. Okay. Now looking at the vertical stack on the left here. Okay, so this is where it gets a little fun. So if you notice, these in the upper section, okay, so they've got bus bars. Now they're a little bit longer, okay, and at the bottom of the bus bar there's a slight offset. So looking at the first circular image there on the top, you can see that offset basically overlaps the bus bar in the lower unit, and it creates a nice clean clamping surface, so we get that solid connection between the two vertical stacks. And then again, we take that even further. So let's say you have the breaker installed. The breaker kit is going to come with its own unique bus bar as well. And basically, as you can see, it's coming off the positive post of the breaker, and it's going to just jog back and over and simply clamp to the existing joint that we've created already between the two stacks. So now while we're looking at this, I kind of want to show, but you can see in the middle of this illustration, it's kind of, there's a component there, but it's transparent, just so I could show you the bus bars and the connections. But basically, that is the joiner component. Okay, so when we are stacking these systems vertically, we basically include this joiner component or joiner kit. Okay, and you'll see that a bit better in the next slide. But basically, what that part is, it's the exact same as the base component, but all it does is has two fairly large, I think they're about 2.5 inch by 2 inch aw browns on the top surface there, and those are directly in front of the posts of the batteries, so that those bus bars in the upper cabinet pass down through them. Okay, so that provides our connection, and of course that joiner kit is what's making this vertical stack completely solid. Okay, because it's bolting both on the bottom and the top flanges there. So I will, and this is where I want to kind of double back to the packaging. Okay, and I talked about their dual purpose. So in a vertical stack system like this, what you'd essentially get is this, right? So you've got one box would be the body kit of the lower unit, okay, and that's going to be considered our standard kit, okay, and then the upper stack, that's going to be considered our expansion kit. Now keep in mind, the components are exactly the same shelf, same panels, everything is bottom. The only difference is the bus bars that are included. So we're considering it an expansion kit, and that's how the box will be indicated with the check boxes between the two, expansion and standard. And then of course, so this unit is 4 packages. So expansion kit, standard kit, you've got your base and your top kit, and then of course, the second purpose of the smaller box is to, instead of a base and a top, it's now the joiner kit. Okay, so those are the 4 packages. So I just wanted to help kind of illustrate how the packaging works. Even though it's still only 2 boxes, we simply switch out the components inside the boxes. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to jump to the modular section. Okay, so let's look at the illustration here, the line drawing illustration here in the center. And we've got 3 scenarios here, okay? So obviously the first one is just your standard single unit. Now beside that, we have our side-by-side stack, okay? So what's important to note here is that unlike the vertical stacked system, the side-by-side stacking does not require any change out of parts or addition of parts, okay? It's essentially just 2 fully built units butted right up to each other. Now, what is going to be included in this configuration, and it is a separate line item on the price list, is the stacking kit, okay, the horizontal stacking kit. So you build your 2 units or 3, however many you need, side by side. You put them together, and inside the stacking kit, you're going to get longer hardware, and that's going to be needed for through bolting the adjoining sides and the shelves, okay? You'll get a chase nipple for the knockouts to allow the stacking cables to pass through the cabinets, and and stacking cables. Sorry, so the 3 items there in that kit. So you want 3 units side by side, then you get 2 horizontal stacking kits, okay? And you just create that nice chain all along. And then of course you have your vertical kit, your vertical stack, and the vertical stacking kit is of course this joiner piece that's in the middle. So the vertical is, again, it's not just 2 full units stacked on top of each other. We need that special part in the middle here to secure the vertical stack, structurally, but also for that bus bar pass through, as you can kind of see on the right side here. Again, they're passing through that framed piece there. Okay. Now also looking at the dimensions here at the bottom, so you can see, so the single unit on its own, 18.1 by 18 inches by 32 inches tall. Okay, so super compact. This thing will fit under the basement stairs, wherever it needs to go. And then of course, even the 2 high stack, we're just over 5 feet. So you can picture this thing in a basement, a utility room, and with plenty of clearance overhead. Okay, and I also want to talk about. Oops. Oh,
here, let me take it here.
Sorry, Troy. I scrolled away.
Okay. Not a problem. Let's just switch this. Okay, go ahead, and you should be able to take back control now.
Okay. And I got to get back to my.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, can you jump forward there? Sorry, guys.
No worries.
And I'm just about done too, actually. I just wanted to point out a little bit about the weights there. Okay, perfect. Thanks, Troy. So the weight of the unit. So on its own there, you can see, so the weight of just the cabinet, 48 pounds. I mean, very minimal. So, even if you had to maneuver this thing around, or you wanted to shift to where it was located, you just scoot it around, right? We're not talking about a heavy rack, a heavy enclosure. And then there's also, I don't know if it's just kind of cut off there, but it also includes the weight of the enclosure with the batteries installed. Okay, and it's kind of cut off there. I think we're 200 and something odd pounds for the single unit.
I can see it still. It says 282.
282. Okay.
564, 565.
Yeah, because I know some people kind of ask that during these things where, well, what is the total weight explaining? So that's the enclosure with the batteries, everything installed, the completed unit ready to be hooked up and commissioned. Okay. So that. Oh, and I'll say, so this is outlining, how these units are modular, and when it comes to ordering, what we'll have internally here with the sales team is basically a sizing calculator. Okay, so we determine how many units you need. Do you want them horizontally stacked, if you're getting 2 or 3, or do you want them vertically stacked? And of course, this will help streamline, our warehousing. So, the guys get the order, they simply pull the boxes off the shelf, the kit's required, they've got the components inside, and they ship them out, and you get your units nice flat packed, ready to go. Okay, and that is,
there you go. Awesome.
that is the SISM box. Okay, I'm going to leave our number here too. So I want everyone to if you have questions, feel free to call our sales team. They're ready to answer questions, take orders, and things of that nature. So please feel free to call. And yes, so this completes my half of the presentation. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it and ultimately got a better understanding of why, as both an end user and an installer, that this product makes sense to use in your next SimpliPhi battery-based system. I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and thanks again, Troy and the guys at SimpliPhi, co-hosting this with us. Okay. So
No
Troy, I'll
problem.
pass it back to you now.
Awesome. That was great. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks.
I'm going to go ahead and pop. So there's Sentinel's number again, plus my email or my generic training email if you have any questions. We've got some questions we can get through real quick. I only have about 5 or 10 minutes.
Troy, this is Chris. Can you hear me?
Yep. And Chris is going to go ahead and kick us off on the questions.
Yeah, let me ask a couple of these questions here. They're really good. Thanks to Dan and Troy. So one person asked, what is the suggested age difference of batteries if you're going to expand your battery bank? Let's say add a few batteries to your existing battery bank. What's the maximum amount of time you want to wait to do that?
Great question. It's kind of changed from year to year, but now it's really there technically I don't think is a limit. I would say 3 years is my kind of what I see as a good time frame to get that done. Just an FYI, the warranty. So if you add new batteries to existing system, the warranty is always going to be reflective of the oldest battery in the system. So definitely 3 years is a really good time frame to get that done.
All right, thanks. And someone else asked, what's the best product to use with our batteries for accurate state of charge monitoring?
None.
You touched on the AmpliPHI, but curious to know what else you think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the oops, sorry there. Nice. That's on me. The AmpliPHI obviously is going to be the most accurate currently. Their newest battery actually reports state of charge directly to the inverter. That being said, if you're using your standard batteries, a really good option that I find that works really well, because a lot of battery monitors are really designed to be used for lead acid batteries, or they're just not that accurate yet. The Victron BMV 700 battery monitor seems to work the best for our batteries. They designed it with lithium in mind, as they have their own lithium battery, and that one works really, really well to get a very accurate state of charge reading. If you're using something like a Schneider, an Outback, Magnum, whatever it may be, look at our integration guide. We do have some really specific settings to try to help get the very, very accurate SOC readings out of those monitoring platforms.
And then we have that sort of niche HALA product too, which you may or may not want to mention. You don't believe it was in your presentation, correct?
It wasn't. We do have that external product, the HALA. It's basically a way to connect to our standard batteries. Well, actually, you need to have the HALA ready battery, but it's basically a device that kind of adds a level of communication and complexity to the battery, but is able to report things like state of charge as well.
And I'm happy to discuss that with anybody that's interested offline. This is Chris Keast.
Awesome. Let me pop through. Let's see what else we got here. Awesome. Some good comments on the battery box I see. Agreed. That thing looks amazing. I really love the way that connects together. By the way, Dan, that's awesome. I really like that.
Yeah, thanks.
Very smooth transition to get those stacked. And I think, my opinion on it is looking at it from, this is shooting my own self in the foot here. You order one of our large battery boxes, like Dan said, it's you're talking a lot of shipping, a lot of getting it on site. I think this is a really good solution to have low weight that's brought on site, built up to something very strong to house these batteries really well.
Absolutely.
What if you want horizontal and vertical in the same system? So I'm guessing that's maybe for you, Dan, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. So in one of the slides, it kind of showed, you have two verticals, but they're also horizontal as well. And it would be no different. So you would still stack the systems vertically, but then you would also get your horizontal stack as well. So you could still through both the units together side by side.
Awesome. Okay, for the SimpliPhi training, I assume it is remote. What is the price? I think you're probably talking about the IQ program. You actually just took the training. That is the only one I really would say is like a necessity. Now, I will say my other trainings are going to help a lot more for passing that test, and it's actually listed on the website, the 3 trainings that are recommended. But this is actually the battery 101 that I typically would give. So there is no cost to it at all. It's free to apply for the program. All my trainings are always free unless it's at a conference. then I have no control over the conference. So just FYI, I would never charge for training. Actually, typically once we can get back in person, we like to hopefully provide lunch and everything for people showing up to our training.
Yeah, and I'll answer the question on the access unit. So
Yeah.
we currently offer access units using Schneider, as Troy mentioned, or solar converters. Those are currently the only two that we offer that unit with. But we also work with a number of other inverters if you want to wire up your own system, be it in a different cabinet or without a cabinet.
Yeah, I think in looking at that Sentinel cabinet, I mean, that's a great product to kind of mimic the access solution where, you know, I'll be honest, access are pretty pricey to ship up if you are in Canada. So, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to get, you know, something like an all-in-one cabinet that Sentinel can provide with those great bus bars and connection points. And then you can integrate whatever inverter you want. I mean, the connection at that point is pretty straightforward, especially if, like, let's say you had, you know, something with a power panel already on it, like the Schneider or the Outback has those specific power panels. There's really not a lot of exposed wiring at that point, if any. It's very nice and clean.
Mhm.
So I'm always open for these kind of cabinets. And that one is really well put together. Looks easy. You guys just send me one. I'll try to put it together.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Can we get training at factory? Currently, our company is on a no travel policy. So I'm stuck here. So sadly, right now we are doing no leaving, especially when we can avoid it. Thank you for the nice comments there. As well as I see some people saying, let's chat later. Yeah, definitely reach out to training@simplifypower.com. If you've got any sales questions as well, and you just don't want to write this one down, if you remember it, sales@simplifypower.com is also great to reach out to our sales team. And as always, Sentinel Solar, one of our great distributors, will have tons of information as well. Definitely they'll be the ones to go to if you're ready to talk about pricing or purchasing or anything like that. Go to Sentinel. Awesome. Well, I just wanted to, that's all the questions we had. So I just want to give a big thanks to Dan and the Sentinel team for the co-hosts here. Really appreciate it and really appreciate those slides in the cabinet. And I want to say a big thanks to everybody else as well for attending.
Yeah,
Thank
great. Thanks so much, Troy.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
And there we go. All right, everyone. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Take care, guys.